Kenneth, with a question. I have a Dremel 4000. What setting or Romeo you suggest for polishing? Not sure about the Romeo part. So the setting on the 4000, the 4000 is similar. Actually, it's a tad stronger than my Azedo, which I'm pointing to, and it's right. Oh god, it's just off the screen. I would say probably minimum. I mean, you can go up to 10,000 RPM or something. Maybe I should show the calculator that I use. But you can use what is called, what is it? Like a, let me see, I think I've got it saved in a bookmark somewhere. So you can use an RPM calculator and it will tell you the speed that you should run your Dremel at. If you're with the diamond burrs, go lower. So sintered diamond sintered diamond you can go fairly fast. Electroplated are pretty rough on stones, so go lower. Nova points, you don't want the Nova points to melt, but you can go faster. And then when you're polishing and you've got your felt, wherever that is, with the felt you can go quite fast if you keep it wet. Once it gets dry, heat like exponentially increases, and then you're going to crack your stone or you'll be throwing around dust everywhere, so don't do that. How you call the bit for Dremel with the screw? Put the cotton for polishing. Oh yeah, so you're talking about this one here where you can just screw this little piece off. I'd typically just call that it's just a mandrel with a screw on the end. So screw mandrel would be fine. Ah, look at that. I think it's called a screw mandrel. They're on it. Yeah, screw mandrel is typically what I look for. Or it might be called like a threaded mandrel, something like that. And really cheap ones have a terrible point, which is fine for felt, but you do need to buy better ones for when you want to make your own wooden burrs. I've burned a Nova point a little bit. Yeah, so have I. I've burnt... Oh, well, I wouldn't have it out anymore. It's in a container. But yeah, I cooked one pretty bad when I first started. I tried using the rotary tool on max speed, which for me is... it's quite quick. Yeah, 35,000. 35,000, not advisable. Yeah, disable that feature on your rotary tool. I bought a Hydrophane Opal, it is dried out, but should I hand polish cut or machine cut? I mean, I've seen it done every single way, so they can all work. I think it's just when you dry is the most important factor. I mean, I've got a few sitting in water still like this. So this is one that I do want to work on at some point. That light glare is making it really annoying. So there's a nice big chunky Ethiopian rough. One of the ones that subscriber Mike sent through. I think you can do any of them. I've seen people cut them machine cut them like on a cabbing wheel, like as you would any other opal, pretty aggressively. I mean, I think it'll chip a little bit, but you should be right. And as long as you don't then let it dry before polishing, or you do the entire process dry. So people do that as well, but any kind of silica-based stone, I wouldn't want to be cutting it fully while it's dry. It's just a little bit too risky for my liking. What piece of rough on your current to-do list are you most excited about? Or most excited about piece of rough? I've got a couple that I don't even want to give a sneak peek on. I mean, at the moment, I am pretty keen to get this one going. I like working on other people's stones. It saves me going through the hassle of finding stones and then selecting one out of a parcel after you've bought it and got it delivered. It's much easier when someone says, hey, I need this thing worked on. Can you get this done? And it's fun talking to them about the process. Like I unbox it. I've already recorded it, but I unbox it, I analyze it, I give them some comments and feedback and whatnot, see if they think it's all right or if they want to do something different, then I take that on board. And then, yeah, we get it done. I don't charge anything for any of this kind of carving work. I consider, as long as I can record a video on it, then I'm perfectly fine not to charge at all. And I mean, so YouTube video wise, each video makes maybe, I don't know, like $5 on a good one. So it's $5, but because it saves me so much time trying to find parcels and buy parcels, then I'm quite happy with it. And it lets me save some money for some other video ideas that I want to bring to life. So saving those YouTube ad pennies, and I'll crack open that piggy bank and buy a couple things on the shopping list. Dry cutting opal is scary. It is indeed. I'm still trying to get a medical professional on the channel to have a bit of a chat about some of the safety side of things, mainly to do with silicosis. So I'm looking for kind of a respiratory expert, but it hasn't worked out yet. I'm still trying though. When using epoxy in the case of doublets, have any problems developed over time with any deterioration? Yes. So, Robert, especially if you talk to some older guys, so some older epoxies that they used to use did have issues to do with even just humidity. So any moisture, any water, anything like that, you had huge issues where basically the layers would just come straight apart. Also more with triplets than doublets, there were a couple of epoxies that were being used that yellowed. So you've got those 3 layers. The clear layer would start turning this weird yellow, and it was always just the glue just dying out. But most modern day epoxies, I mean, even if I can find my 5-minute epoxy, which sits down here somewhere, I've got him. So I'm pretty sure even this stuff says it's fairly non-yellowing. So any of them that say non-yellowing, they're pretty good in terms of keeping its clarity. And then you just need one that's fairly waterproof as well. And it costs a little bit more to get a water tolerant and non-yellowing epoxy, but they are out there. So you can pick one up and yeah, you don't have the same issues as what they used to back in the day. I still wouldn't soak them in water, because you can soak them in water or soak them in acetone or something, and those layers can slowly come off. People actually used to repair doublets before they realized it was, probably not worth the time expenditure to get it done. Which opal do you think sells the best? It has to be calibrated cut lightning ridge opals. Oh, no, because the problem, lightning ridge black opals, though everyone wants them, because of that, the supply and demand makes it quite expensive. So I'd still say, I haven't seen any data or stats on it for a while, but I'd still say probably white opal then. So probably some Cooper Pedy white opal, calibrated cut of course, is probably the best solid opal in terms of buying, cutting, selling. Just because a lot of people can afford it, and you can get some great looking stuff for less upfront cost than a lightning ridge black. But everyone wants the lightning ridge black, so you can still get much more money out of cutting lightning ridge than Cooper Pedy. It's just, in terms of sales, it depends on what you mean by sells best, I guess. How do you make sure the face is parallel with the back of the gem you are cutting? So, in my case, I actually don't finish the backs of gems that often. Where's that recut stone? It's still lying here. So even with this stone that I've just recut, you'll notice that it's still not in line. Mainly because I want to bezel set this, and when I get the thickness of the metal ribbon, I'll basically be measuring it and then marking that line and then cutting back to that line. The easiest way to do it is basically to hold your stone, keeping an eye on the level of your color bar, and then pressing that up against like a flat lap or something. Even a cabbing wheel isn't quite as good as a flat lap for getting it just dead straight and in line with the color bar. But if you do that right at the start of the stone and your color bar starts doing something funny, you run into problems really quickly. So a lot of the time in my case, I'm happy to work with a stone that's not perfectly flat to the surface, because when you're carving, you're you've got a lot of dexterity and a lot of movement, so you can kind of make do with whatever. I mean, the stone could be held on its side and you could still carve away. So if you are cabbing though, it is more important to get that right and then to dop it and then make sure that it's flat on your dop stick. That's where wax is actually quite good, because the wax can help create that kind of backing even between the dop stick and the stone. So you don't have to have the backing perfectly flat. You can just adjust it to make sure that it's perpendicular to the dop stick. Thinnest you would ever make a stone. I make doublets out of very thin pieces just to make sure they don't break. Well, that's a safe bet. All you want is it not to break. Breaking is not great. I wonder if I've got... So I have cut a few thin ones, but yeah, they are typically designed for doublets. If you're talking about a solid stone, it all depends on the size of the stone. So if you've got, all right, these two stones. So if you've got a stone that's more like this one, where it's quite a big, almost inch side to side there, this one you definitely can't do like a 3mm cut. But on something more like this, I mean 3mm might still be pushing it, but it could probably do 3mm and still have some sort of strength, because you just can't get that. There's not a lot of chance that you're going to kind of snap it in that direction. Across this way, it's not going to snap. And then all you're worried about is something hitting the face of it and snapping through as well, because that's the same kind of lever point as going like this. So the bigger the stone gets, the thicker it has to be. But you can cut some really small stones, like 3mm thick, and they're still rock solid. So I think it does come down to how wide your stone's going to be. Mainly at the widest point is where you're most concerned. And of course, you can also inlay and all that kind of stuff. So I don't really think the thickness is overly important, unless you want like an open back and you want everything displayed and it's like a prong setting or something. And in that case, you're going to want like a 5mm thick boy to make sure it can handle being smacked around a little bit, especially on a pendant or a ring where, I mean, could punch a brick wall and it'll snap. So got to be a bit careful with that. Thick opals for punching brick walls is what I would say. What do you think about using strong superglue for making doublets? Will it do? I don't think it would do as good a job, mainly because of the consistency of superglue. And I'm not a hater of superglue. Right on my bench here, you can see superglue. You can see this one, especially cool because it's super glue. But I do like superglue. I use it for a lot of things, but for doubleting, I'll never use that, I don't think, just because of the water resistance of it is nowhere near as good as some of the epoxies. So when I dop with superglue, all I do is soak it in water and it pops off quite easily. With epoxy, you can soak it in water as well, but it does take a lot longer, like an overnight soak, and you can get the stone off, but typically the glue sticks to the stone and it comes off the wood, whereas with the superglue it can kind of come off the stone really easy. So I don't think it's going to be as good for doublets. Got a preferred epoxy. So for dopping I still use my 5-minute 2-part. For doublets I still go with 330. So epoxy 330 is probably still my go-to. It's not overly hard to get. Most of the time I do have to order it in, but it's a very reliable epoxy. It works really well. It takes to the color really well, and it's all round just it's a great epoxy. You could use it for dopping as well, but it's a little bit expensive for that. So I wouldn't use it for dopping, but for doublets, 330 I think is the one that I still recommend to everybody. I have tried a few others that do seem to work, but I don't know the long-lasting effects of any of the others. How do you keep your hands warm carving in the winter? Warm water. I mean, the winter is not that cold where I live. No, I mean, it can be cold. I don't think last winter we got a single frost, and it definitely doesn't snow. So compared to the rest of you guys scattered across the world, I'm sure you mean cold as in like proper cold, but that I would suggest just warm water. I've done it a few times. It doesn't seem to affect the stones at all, so it can work. What's your final polish? 50,000, 100,000. So grit is kind of, so this is actually a video that I've even partially recorded it, that I'm in the process of working on. So grit is only kind of half the story when it comes to cerium oxides and stuff. I mean, if you want to have a quick look before the video comes out, it's a process known as CMP, so chemical mechanical polishing or chemical mechanical planarization. In our case, I'd say polishing because we're not looking for a perfectly flat surface. But with CMP, grit is kind of not the main focus. So for my final polish, I would more say that I use like a 2 micron cerium oxide is probably the go-to, or sometimes a 0.3 micron aluminium oxide. The reason for that one being smaller, I'll explain in that video as well. But it's basically a dual action process. If you're using diamond paste, you're just doing mechanical polishing. So you're just cutting with tinier diamonds, in which case you want to go quite high. But when it comes to metal oxide polishing, it's a different story. So there is a bit of a chemical interaction, and you're using that to get the finest polish you can. So don't worry, it's a little bit sciencey, but I am going to make sure that it's pretty understandable. It's fairly basic concepts, and I won't go into the deep science behind it. Maybe I'll draw some chemical diagrams, but all in all, it's not too bad. What is cerium oxide considered grit-wise? So let's just chuck it up here. So, like, there's multiple grades of cerium oxide. Optical grade, I think, is between 3 and 5 micron. I think it's between 3 and 5 micron. Super cerium is another option, and super cerium is more like the 2 micron. So if you just go 2 micron to grit, of course, depending on what website you go to, the meaning of grit is going to change quite significantly. So let me just drag one of these onto screen. If I can find a good one, I don't know, we'll give this one a crack. Give this one a shot. So if you go here and you look at the micron, we're going to be down towards the end. Okay, so there's a micron column there as well. So what's that, 1200? Oh, that's micro mesh. Oh, I hate grits. So, oh no, 1200. So that's the American standard there. That's the micron. So 5 micron, 1200. By the time you get down to here, you're going to be looking more like 5,000 odd. So, I don't know, cerium oxide is probably, for most of it, the optical grade and above, at least 1200. So 1200 grit. It's, yeah. As I'll explain in another video, the grit doesn't really matter so much depending on how you use your powder. What do I do with all my little offcuts and chips? I do keep, I mean, it depends. Like, sometimes you get chips that you're not keeping them. Sometimes you get offcuts that you're cutting free because there's just nothing there. If I'm doing a calibrated cab on a stone, which is typically only if I'm cutting a calibrated cab for someone, they say I can keep the chips, in which case I have a little Ziploc bag with chips that I keep adding to it, but it would be in one of the cupboards off screen over here somewhere. But I do keep them in a little Ziploc bag because they say I can keep the offcuts. Probably because I cut the stone for them for free. So any offcuts, they say, are mine. Actually, I should have mentioned that before. I do get a lot of people asking why I'm dopping with Superglue. So if I switch it back up, so a lot of the time I'm dopping with either my super, so super it won't autofocus, Superglue, or like one of the Loctite superglues. I'm only doing that on the channel because I've kind of, sometimes I don't know if I want to dop a stone, And while I'm working on a video, I just need to dop it. So I just grab the super glue and dop it because it only takes a couple minutes to dry. Whereas most of the time, if I'm cutting off channel or I'm actually prepared, I will always dop with the 5-minute epoxy. It's a stronger hold, much more reliable. Having said that, super glue's only popped off once or twice for me. And the epoxy is much harder to use just because you've got to mix it up, dop all the stones quickly before it starts hardening on you, and then keeping them all balanced while it solidifies and stuff. It can get quite difficult, but I've got, oh, I can't reach that. It's all the way over there. There's a big styrofoam block. And if you get styrofoam blocks, you can just grab your dop sticks, like these chopsticks, and just stab them straight in while the stone is drying. So there's a nice little hack for you. Just get a styrofoam box from whatever. If you've unpacked a fridge lately or something, there's heaps of it. So I've just kept a big brick of it. But yeah, I do get asked a lot why I always use super glue. I mean, wax is good. So wax is still probably as good, if not better than super glue. But it's a little bit more preparation. You can get it wrong and it doesn't stick so well. But yeah, it is quite nice. I just can't be bothered ordering it in. I mean, that super glue came in a pack of 400 from Woolies or something. And the other Loctite super glues I can just get from Bunnings, and I've got a Bunnings like behind me somewhere. Wait, which way do we face? Nope, it's that way. It's only like a short walk in that direction, so. Oh, people do ask me a lot how to have a closer look or a better look at an opal. So even just using this one as an example, while I'm cutting, I've got this stupid, yeah, here it is, it's covered in dust. I've got this, so this is like a little, I don't know where it even comes from, Draper. Maybe it's just to help you read. It's just a tiny little magnifying loop kind of thing. And I think it's a 10 times. It feels like it's about a 10 times. Oh, look, circle lights. But at the same time, when I want to really have a look, I have this. So see, I keep it in a little case to keep it clean. But this is a double. So a double loop, I've got 30, actually it says on the front here, 30 and 60. So 30 and 60, it's actually ultra fancy. It's got little LED lights that can help me have a good look, though these actually affect the color that you're seeing, so they're not the best. But yeah, 30 and 60 times loop, and that's what I use typically while I'm cutting away to look at opals. Mainly 30. If I want to be really strict on myself at the end of a cut and polish, I'll look at it with a 60. It feels good when there's you find nothing under a 60 times. But if you do find something, it's really annoying. Have you started the silversmithing yet? From Paul. That was also something that I had written down on my notepad. So the jewelry making stuff, I've hit a little bit of a brick wall. I just need to sort out the soldering part and I'm good. Like I've got files, I've got everything I need to cut. And I'd still need oh no, I don't even need the bezeling stuff. All I need is to sort out the soldering side of things, and I am good. I'm golden. So hopefully sometime soon I can sort that out. And then I want to go catch up with another YouTuber, Opal Mills, and I'll just learn from him because he is an absolute legend and he knows opal well, he knows silversmithing well. There's no better person to ask for advice in that department. And again, he lives down the road. Well, like 40 minutes down the road, but literally could just drive to his place in 30 minutes or so. Charlie's just said that he started silversmithing after watching Opal Mills and took a class in an art school. I did do everything to sign up for a little bit of a program run in town. And then a little illness came around and kind of wiped out all possibilities of those kind of school things happening. So I didn't even get a chance to do like a weekend course. It's so annoying. But Opal Mills is real good. All right, well, that was a good hour and a bit. So I guess it's the start of a Sunday for me, so I will be carving at some point, most likely working on this now that I've recorded the analysing part, and I've still got a couple other things to do, like preparing the metal oxide talk, so we can talk about a bit of a scientific term, but chemical mechanical polishing or planarization. And I think a lot of people get a lot out of it because it really does, it helps you understand what you're trying to do when you're polishing. Because otherwise you're just relying on a method that works the most, but you don't really understand, and you don't need to understand what's happening scientifically, but it does help, and it might make things make more sense for you guys. So yeah, anyway, I'll see you when that happens.